Hi everyone, welcome back to C5 Tips channel here. We're going to talk about the Propeller Governor system here. So this system is basically operable. We will only we'll play with the left engine because right engine is just a demo. So you guys know. So this system will have, let's say we'll have the sump right up here, engine oil driven pumps right up here, and then this is accumulator, um, accumulating 2000 model of PA44-180 horsepower only, not the 79 model, and the line that goes through the propeller governor, that's the governor, and it goes to the hub, and you have the propeller here, and you have uh, nitrogen loaded piston, and this thing right up here hanging is that fully feathering pin. So, and you have these two gauges, manifold and RPM. What's going on inside the propeller governor? You have the speeder spring coming down, which is controlled by the propeller lever. So propeller lever all the way down, you will have fully feathered propeller, and then fully up, you will have low pitch, high RPM, controlling with the speeder spring, pushing the disc down and up. So right now, as you guys can see, we have there's a disc, and we have flyweights. They call these L-shaped type of things flyweights, and you have pilot valve coming down that is connected to the engine case, and that I think goes through some gears and shafts connected to the either camshaft or crankshaft. So that's what's going on inside the prop governor. All right, so now we call this thing this constant speed propeller. What does that mean? Constant speed RPM, constant RPM. It's very basic. So just remember these flyweights and the disc that I said it's spinning really fast. Spins really fast, and the pilot valve is connected to that disc, and pilot valve connected to either camshaft or crankshaft. So let's go here. Why we call it again constant speed props. So let's say you're in a level flight, and your RPM is the same. Um, in a single engine aircraft, you will have, for example, if you start your climb, what happens is that your RPM decreases, right? RPM goes down, and if you descend, your RPM goes higher. Um, but in constant speed propeller, we are the governor will keep it constant. How does it keep it constant? Basically, so let's talk about something right quick before we get into back to governor, prop governor here. So have you guys? I'm pretty sure you guys been on the merry-go-round. So let's say there's a chair right up here, and you're sitting on it and looking, and your hair is just this way. And then there's another chair. Your friend is sitting here, very skinny. And all of a sudden, somebody brings their motorcycle. I don't know if you guys watched that YouTube video. This guy is ugly motorcycle, but this guy having fun with his motorcycle. and spins this merry-go-round, and that merry-go-round goes really fast. And what happens to you? You're probably gonna fly out of this. Um, so your body feels like it's gonna want to fly out, right? Outward. So, same way your friend will feel. They're trying to go outward. So now, if you connect this theory with the disk that has fly weights, it's gonna be the same. So let's say now in constant speed airplane, and if you're trying to climb multi-engine, make it multi-engine. Oops, what the heck am I doing? Multi-engine, and you're trying to climb at this point. No. What the heck? There we go. So now you're trying to climb. What happens to your disk is going to get slower, right? Because the engine RPM try to go down, right? So, you know what? Let me make it so you guys can understand better. So, let's talk this same theory coming down. So, let's say your Seminole going downhill. Down, descending really rapidly. What happens to that disk is the RPM is supposed to increase, right? So as the RPM increases, this disk goes a lot faster. It spins a lot faster. What happens to those fly weights? Basically, they go outward, right? They go outward. My drawings are not good. So the same way as you experience right up here, these these fly weights go outward. Have that outward. And what happens to that disc is basically is being pulled up. So this goes up, and that disc will pull up that pilot valve with it, right? So when it pulls up that pilot valve, there's a return line, and there's a line that, let me make it different color. There's a let's make it, what should I use? Alright, let's green. There's a return line, right? So return line opens up, and the fluid from the oil from the hub returns back into return line into the sump, back to the sump, bypassing the engine-driven pump. So that means if your oil is coming back from the hub this way, we already talked about it. If the oil comes back, returns back to the sump, you having high pitch, high angle of attack, and low RPM. Creates low RPM, high pitch. So at that point, that will keep your RPM constant, same as you had it while you were flying straight and level. Okay, so that's how you gonna your RPM is gonna be. Now we go back to the climb now. So in climb here, you're climbing this time with your Seminole, and this time the disc spins slower, gets slower and slower. What happens when it gets slower? Your flyweight changes its position. Oops, not. I need to. So they go inward, um, and the disc basically pushed him inward at this time, at this point. So what happens? This goes downward. The pilot valve opens the line that goes toward the hub. The fluid goes toward the hub, pushes the nitrogen loaded piston, and creates low pitch, high RPM. From the sump, and then goes through the engine driven pumps, and then goes to through the governor, and then goes straight to the hub, propeller hub. And let's say this is your propeller. And it creates low pitch, high RPM. So at this point means the propeller, the pitch of the propeller goes lower, and then it creates high RPM, so you can maintain that RPM same as you are in level flight. Hope that makes sense. Coming back to this picture here, so the flyweights come downward, like inward, and then the disc and pilot valves comes downward, and that's when you have the oil rushing toward the hub, pushes the piston forward, and creates low pitch, high RPM. Alright, so this is when you not even touching the props and you climb and descend. That's what happens, what's going on inside the prop governor. Now we can play with this a little bit. So what is this pin doing here is when you on the ground, only on the ground, if you're on the ground, not in the air, because in the air you might want to feather. So this is, we said that this pin is fully feathering locking pin, right? So it prevents on the ground this propeller to go into a fully feathering position. So the reason it's made this way, because if the propeller goes into fully feathering position, think about it. Just close your eyes right now and think. When you're trying to start the engine, would the propeller will have a hard time to turn, or not? If you saying no, then you're dumb. Just kidding. So, yes, so it's gonna have a hard time to start. Probably not gonna start on you. So that's why they have this pin here, so it comes down and locks into position. So let's demonstrate, let's play around. I hadn't had a chance to play with it. So let's say now we said that our only left engine is working. So the way it looks, we have setting up manifold of 900, and then you have about 1200 RPM here. Let's reduce that 1200 RPM into, reduce it into 900 RPM. See what happens to our pin here. Let's go. Actually, keep it at 900 or 1000. Keep it at 1000, and let's reduce now prop RPM here. Okay, it doesn't do anything. So let's reduce a little bit more. So about that much. Now let's try to bring fully feather our propeller. Okay. Let me go a little bit more here. Alright, so let's reduce RPM a little bit more. And so if you keep the RPM about 900 and reduce propeller, that's weird. That's in the ground. Let's take a look. Now guys, I'm playing with it, just give me a second. We'll see what happens here next. Alright. There we go. Now, I don't know if it's a glitch or something. When your manifold pressure falls below 750 and RPMs goes below 900, that's when the pin falls down and locks into position. Let's see. Get it back in the air. So guys, don't worry about all these lines, adjustments. We will talk about it in a second. I'm just gonna try to test this here. On the ground. Alright, there we go. So your manifold pressure falls below 750 and then your RPMs goes below 900. If it goes below 900 and your manifold is 750 and you're trying to bring the RPM propeller lever all the way down, that's when you have that pin falls into place and locks it up. So yeah, get it out of that. Alright. Now, this is just a, testing this system here, but it's not not exact settings. So exact settings would be around. Let's take a look. If you basically bring your prop lever all the way down and trying to feather it, that's when you have your pin come down and lock up in the position. And you should be on the ground mode. So let's try one more time. So let's take a look. Now we have about 600 inches of manifold here, and then we have 1000 RPM, right? I'm going to bring about 500 inches and 950. That's when it falls down. And prop lever. Because on the ground you obviously will have throttle all the way idle. So if you bring the throttle all the way to like 1000 RPM, because you have your propeller already high pitch, low pitch, high RPM, right? So you're just looking at the RPM at this point when you're on the ground. So yep, so about below 900 RPM and manifold below 750 goes down, pin gets locked up in position. Doesn't let you to go into a feathering position on the ground. But in the air, you will have the propeller still windmilling. That's why you won't have the RPM going below 1000. So you will have that RPM higher, about 1500 or 1200. So that's why you're not gonna go into, that the pin doesn't fall and lock up in that position, because your propeller is still spinning. Your RPM is up still. So that is your pin there. Now let's take a look what's going on. We are in the air. Our RPM, let's set it 2200. 2200 manifold, and then we will keep that 23 on RPM wise. Say you're cruising at this point, right? And you're cruising at this point and you're trying to I'm trying to fill the engine with the mixture. So you fill the engine with mixture. What happens here? So when you fill engine with mixture, I guess it's what happens. Basically, governor trying to control the RPM, because your RPM gets slower, and if pushes oil from the sump. The reason your RPM gets lower because your engine doesn't have any power, and your propeller is still windmilling and creating some pressure, a little bit of pressure in the oil sump and the engine. Your engine driven pumps are still pumping, and that oil gets into the hub and keeps it in low pitch right now. That's why you have this open and that oil going, trying to push that, piston, nitrogen loaded piston. And take a look at your RPM. Its RPM is still, you're still in the air, and your RPM is kind of. And if you're trying to feather, it's just gonna go feather. You guys saw what happened, right? Now, when you are running with the with engine, basically your engine is off, your throttle is open, still you know, it doesn't have mixture, but the oil is moving through. And let's take a look at this. We can go in a little bit deep here. So if I bring the prop lever all the way down, look at the oil returns back into a sump and feathers the propeller into feathering position. So this piston pushes it, in backwards and feathers the propeller. So you don't have any drag. You don't have any parasite drag. Alright, that makes kind of a sense. Now, let's take a look. Now we have the engine back, right? We pull the mixture all the way forward and have the throttle around here. And let's take a look. We want to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get this propeller out of feathering position. So what we need to do is just pull this lever up and look at this. So this time from accumulator, oil shoots into the hub, pushes the propeller forward, low pitch RPMs gets higher. When that spins the crankshaft, the oil rushes and helps maintain the propeller back, and the propeller governor will stop the flow at the certain angle of attack of the RPM. So I hope I'm not missing any other detail here, but yeah. If I'm missing anything here, just comment below. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys soon on my next video. Okay, enjoy. Bye.